All right, a lot of our LSU faithful have joined the program recently, Nick. So if you haven't yet joined the party and you're an LSU Tiger fan, we'd love to have you. For those of you that already have, welcome home. We're glad you're here. Let's talk about LSU going to Arkansas to play the Razorbacks. This is the battle for the Golden Boot. They play for an enormous Golden Boot trophy. I believe it's somewhere north of 100 pounds, so that'll be a whole lot of fun to play for. But LSU is favored by 3 points in this game, 12 Eastern kick. For LSU, they just beat Bama. They control their own destiny in the SEC West, which is a crazy thought after the Florida State game and after what we saw them do against Tennessee. They control their own destiny, and a lot of people are talking about, well, hey, if you went out and you beat Bama, and let's say you get to Atlanta and you beat a Georgia team who's number one in the country, you getting left out of the playoff? We'll probably do a video on that later, but all that's to say it's a conversation, which is exciting for Brian Kelly and company in year one. For Arkansas, they're trying to hit the reset button a little bit. They just lost to Liberty. KJ Jefferson, there's a lot of talk about how healthy he is or isn't. I want to make sure I make this clear. This is still the same Arkansas team that we were talking about in the preseason and having very, very realistic possibility to be a 9-10 win football team. Like, there is still some really good stuff in-house at Arkansas. Sam Pittman and company, their culture is probably second to none in the country. At least top 3 if you want to talk about cultures. They're going to be ready to play in this game. This is not poor little Arkansas just limping into this game and, they're going to have to just deal with LSU. I don't think that's the case. Like I said, they're at home. They're going to get their minds back right, and this is a huge opportunity for them to reset their season and reset the trajectory of what Arkansas football is going to be in 2022. Oh, yeah, also it's a rivalry game. You play for a trophy. Should be a good one. Does LSU's offensive line create the production you need to be dangerous for LSU? I said it before. I think I tweeted it out. LSU, when they can run the football, they're one of the most dangerous teams in the country. And we've seen it click now a little bit for this program because they had so many different offensive line units playing, and now they've got one they're finally sort of catching some tempo with. Josh Williams has been a dog for them. Of the last 3 games, he's averaged right around 6 yards a carry, and we've seen the dividends of that for this program offensively. He's a big reason why they won against Alabama last week. When they can run the football, creates a little more tension in that box, creates a little less attention on the outside for some of those receivers. I'll tell you a little secret. LSU likes the matchup they have this week against the Arkansas secondary. Arkansas secondary giving up right around 293 yards a game through the air. Got Kayshon Boutte, who's going to have an NFL contract here in the very near future. Got Malik Neighbors, who's torn it up. There's nobody in Arkansas secondary that can play with those cats. Just the fact of the matter. So LSU already likes that matchup, but if they can run the football, if Jayden Daniels gets the read option game going a little bit, creates even more space for those dudes to get to work. So keep an eye on that. If Josh Williams runs the football, everything else opens up. Something to keep an eye on for LSU. Dellinger is back this week in terms of being available. Does he get some burn in this game? There's a lot of conversation in LSU circles about how he's maybe one of your best, if not your best, offensive linemen. But again, offensive line is so much about continuity. So do you risk tinkering with that formula of what you have that's working by adding in seemingly a better ingredient? Or just say, hey, we're not going to touch it. Let those dudes keep doing what they do. Something to keep an eye on, but again, if they can produce with the offensive line, good things will happen for LSU. Now, if they can't, the whole crowd probably feeds into that Arkansas momentum and things get interesting for them because that offense for Arkansas is still pretty prolific, even with what they haven't had from KJ Jefferson being totally healthy. Now, that's the next point I want to make. The assumption for Arkansas is that KJ Jefferson will be in some shape or form available in this game. Played last week against Liberty. Malik Hornsby is his backup, who's sort of a similar flavor of a mobile quarterback. So that's my next question is, what does Arkansas do in the quarterback run game to put pressure on LSU? Because, like I said, both those guys can make plays, and they do a lot in the designed run capacity. Kind of think Jackson Dart, but maybe a little bit more athletic and a little bit more powerful running the football. Both these guys can hurt you. Assuming it is KJ Jefferson, if there can be a 1-2 punch for Arkansas with Raheem Sanders and KJ Jefferson coming downhill on you, that wears on a defense. And if they can wear on you up front, deep plays happen. You can have some explosive shots. And that could be something to watch in an away game for LSU. If they don't play well between the tackles with that quarterback run game, there's going to be a lot more prongs that Arkansas can add to this offensive attack. So something to watch for in that game. The matchup I'm watching in relation to this hinge point of the quarterback run game is a freshman named Harold Perkins. Harold Perkins, I believe he was SEC Freshman of the Week for his performance against Alabama. He was charged with spying Bryce Young. That was his responsibility. He did it really effectively. He's going to have the same sort of responsibility, in my assumption, this coming game. So whether he's got to spy Hornsby or Jefferson, that's going to be what he has to do. If he doesn't bring the juice in this game, if he has a freshman kind of game, which I think would be allowed for him being however many years old and playing college football for just a number of games, then Arkansas could kind of cook. But if LSU can shut that down, if Harold Perkins plays the way he did last weekend and is able to neutralize that, well, then Arkansas becomes a little bit more one-dimensional. Make no mistake, they run to set up the pass. If you're not able to run and you just have to pass, LSU gets favored in that matchup. All right, something to keep an eye on there. In addition to that, I think this is probably the third prong to this hinge point of us. The quarterback mobility is going to be a factor, right? Yes, in the run game, but what about when plays break down? Because we saw last week for LSU, Bryce Young is the gingerbread man when he gets in space. I mean, you can't catch him, right? Like, he's just so shifty and does so much back there extending plays. If they're able to extend plays at Arkansas, LSU saw a couple of breakdowns defensively on the back end. It's understandable, but you got to stay plastered to your man if you're LSU for the duration of however long that scramble drill is in effect. Now, the hope for LSU is there's not a whole lot of plays that break down where they're able to keep their eyes downfield if you're Hornsby or Jefferson. You hope that B.J. Ojulari gets home or Harold Perkins gets home. But the point I want to make is extended plays will favor Arkansas in this game. So minimizing those for LSU will be crucial. Last thing I'm looking at in this game. What's the psyche of both programs? Arkansas coming off a tough loss like we talked about. You would think, in theory, trending down, right? What's morale like? Are we upset? Are we feeling sorry for ourselves? Or is their response to that inspired football? Everyone's counting us out. That's fine. We don't need them to be on our team. We need everybody in here. We're going to go ahead and just windshield wipe everything else away. We're focused on LSU. Big opportunity. LSU is the same thing as they're a letdown. Everybody wants to talk about a trap game. Hey, you just slayed the Giant, right? In year one, coming off a huge home win. Now you got to go to Fayetteville, Arkansas in a rivalry game, have a noon kick, so the juice you would imagine is pretty low. Got to wake up early. Got to change your whole pregame routine from what it was a week ago. How does that impact them? That ultimately, I think, determines my prediction in this game. Because Brian Kelly in his press conference on Monday talked a lot about program development. Like, this season for LSU, regardless of how they finish, is already being played with house money. Like, 7 wins for LSU would have been improvement, right? Like, that would have been a step forward under Brian Kelly. The fact that we're talking about them winning the SEC West and now having aspirations for a college football playoff conversation is wild. But Brian Kelly kind of ratcheted that back and just said, if they want to be a champion, meaning those guys in that locker room, if they want to be a champion, there won't be any drop-off inconsistency in terms of how they view their opponent. If they want to be sort of prisoner to the moment and have their own play dictated by the external, we're going to have issues. But he said, basically, we've been thinking about this thing the right way since February and January. Yeah, it's going to be cold. That's fine. We never trained indoors during January and February. We were outside. We've been preparing for this kind of moment as a program. And so he issued the challenge to his team, and I think they respond in a big way on Saturday. I don't think we see LSU drop off. I think we see them respond with energy and enthusiasm, and I think they seize this moment, seize this game, sort of shut down all the trap game talk, like I said, in convincing fashion. I got the Tigers winning this one 30-24. I think Arkansas scores late to make it a little bit closer, but I think LSU controls this game and continues to march towards potentially playing for the SEC title in Atlanta. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.